You mentioned, DSTs, deferred sales trusts. What is it exactly? How different is it from a 1031 exchange? And maybe a few words about that. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the 1031 exchange first, and then the DSTs and the difference between them, because a lot of investors are familiar with 1031 exchange, maybe in a high level, but DSTs, it's something that you don't hear every day.
Great question. And I'm going to center it around an actual deal that we just closed recently in Georgia. It was a 128 unit multifamily property for a gentleman who lives in Northern California and has bought and sold 30 years of properties, hundreds of properties, numerous 1031 exchanges. He's a commercial real estate multifamily expert, and he's a baby boomer, right? And he's a part of the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. And this is according to the American Bankers Association. There's about 17 to 20 trillion dollars that's going to pass from one generation to the next in the next 20 years. In fact, in the US, there's about 77 million baby boomers, and every day about 10,000 of them are turning 65. And what are they challenged with? Well, they're challenged with the toilets, the trash, the liability, the debt, right? The lack of liquidity, having to manage property themselves, having to deal with the banks, and they're ready to enjoy their wealth and be retired from this. But if they sell, they're going to get hit with the 30 to 50% in capital gains tax. And so I want you to picture Dave. He's looking at a property, and this is pre-COVID, and he's looking in North Carolina, and it's a 4.5 to 5% cap rate market. Rents are already pretty up. There's not a lot of value add or meat on the bone for the deal that he's looking at. He's past his 45 days. He already knows it's a seller's market. We've known it's been a seller's market for years now, the last couple of years, but he's still optimistic he can maybe find a deal, but he can't find a deal. He's not finding a deal. And then COVID-19 hits. And so what does he do? He calls me up. He says, Brett, I'm glad I met with you a year ago because I'm going to use the Deferred Sales Trust. I'm all in. I'm not touching real estate for 6, 12, maybe even 24 months because I've seen this song before. I saw it in 08. Not that I think it's going to be as bad as 08, and neither do we. But he goes, I just don't want to risk it, and I don't want to take on a bunch of debt. He goes, you see, Brett, I sold my property for $7.6 million, and in 1031, you have to buy for equal or greater value, which is the first biggest challenge for me, and that I already think the prices are up. So it's a seller's market. So I don't want to sell high and buy higher 180 days later. I want to do what my mom and dad taught me to do, which was sell high and buy low whenever that deal comes up. And so that's the first big distinction between the 1031 exchange and the Deferred Sales Trust. The 1031 exchange is like the old Blockbuster. I don't know if you remember Ellie going to Blockbuster on a Friday night, and you're excited to find a movie and you're hoping it's there, and you get in the movie, you get in the Blockbuster, and it's there. You can see it behind the little cardboard box. And so you're walking over to grab that movie, and your weekend's going to be great. You're excited. You got the new movie, but then somebody just 2 steps before you steps in front of you and grabs that movie, and now you don't have your movie, right? But even if you got that movie and you're excited, you have 3 days to return it. And if you don't rewind, you're going to get hit with a fee. Well, that's like the 1031. It's very restrictive. Well, there's a new thing. It's called Netflix. And guess what? There's no timing restrictions, right? The movie's never sold out. Are there some ongoing monthly fees? Yeah, there are, right? So same with the Deferred Sales Trust. But one of them allows you to trade real estate within 45 days. You have to identify in 180 days to close. The other one, you can buy whenever you want, which leads into a deal that actually closed in 06. This is before my Deferred Sales Trust time for my business partner. Is in Minnesota. This gentleman's worth a couple $100 million, and he sold a $20 million asset. And he looked around and he said, there's no deals that make any sense right now, so I'm not going to do a 1031. So he did a Deferred Sales Trust for the first time, deferred all the tax, parked the money into the trust. 5 years later, that same property that he sold was foreclosed on. And guess who the bank called? They called him and they said, hey, you know that property you sold? Yeah. He goes, well, we just foreclosed on it. The buyer didn't make it, but would you like to buy it back? He goes, maybe. What's the price? And they said, well, 60 cents on the dollar, about 40% less than what you paid for it. And so he said, yeah, that sounds like a good deal. So he bought it back through his trust at 60 cents on the dollar, not using the 1031. What did he do? He did the Netflix, right? He didn't do the Blockbuster. And so some people say, well, that's too good to be true. Why didn't my commercial real estate broker tell me about it? I should know about this, but they just don't. And neither did a lot of people before they heard about it with us. So the best thing about the Deferred Sales Trust is you can sell high and buy whenever you want to. Number 2 is diversification. We believe right now it's one of the best times to diversify because of the uncertainty in the marketplace. So diversification is your friend. And so you're able to sell a highly appreciated asset and move it into multiple asset types. You could put it into stocks, bonds, mutual funds. So unlike a 1031 exchange, which has to be equal or greater value and also in the same asset class, we don't have to do that because we're not using Section 1031. We're using IRC Section 453, which is known as an installment sale. Okay. And so you guys know it as a seller carryback, and your listeners probably know it as that. But we do a specialized installment sale. And when we do it in this way, it's like we're swimming in a blue ocean, right? Where there's no blood in the water. The blood in the water is for people chasing low inventory, highly appreciated property at very low interest rates to borrow from. And everyone's chasing that same deal, and it's all getting bid up. We like to say, no, don't do that. Just come swim in this blue ocean over here, diversify for a while, keep your money parked on the sidelines, and then buy when it makes sense for you, which leads into the third reason why you do a deferred sales trust. And that's what's called a new depreciation schedule. So a lot of your listeners, if they own multifamily for 27 and a half years, guess what? They're fully depreciated. Or if they've done some cost segregation, they're also lower depreciation. Well, if you do a 1031 exchange, that depreciation schedule travels, which is very, very not good, right? Because you don't have as much to offset. So the intent is to get more depreciation. The challenge is the 1031 doesn't allow it. The best way to do is the deferred sales trust. You can get a brand new depreciation schedule, which is also amazing. So adding just one of these things makes it make sense. Adding them all together makes what's called a transformational exit planning for our clients. And you just have to get to know us and understand how it works. And once you do, you'll be empowered.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.